So I think this may be the last video we make about the Jack Eichel trade saga, at least for a few years until we see the hindsight, oh, this is the trade from 2021 and now it's 2023, let's take a look at where these guys are 2 years later. This may be the last time we talk about this trade, but it is, in my opinion, one of the most juiciest parts of this trade. Before Eichel got sent over to the Vegas Golden Knights, we had ourselves two teams that were pretty much the finalists for his services in the trade talks with the Sabres. Firstly, we had those Vegas Golden Knights that ended up winning, and secondly, we had ourselves the Calgary Flames. Now, the Flames were a really interesting contender, because all the guys on this team that were stars, Matthew Tkachuk, he's been in some trade rumors the past few months. We had some debate as to whether or not he would go over to St. Louis. We had Sean Monahan and Johnny Gaudreau trade rumors for a very long time. Their captain, Mark Giordano, no longer on this team. He got picked up by Seattle. So the Calgary Flames, just in the eyes of the NHL and the public sphere, were kind of in this stage of sort of flipping the script, maybe committing all the way to trading away their core, maybe keeping only some of these guys like Tkachuk, maybe a few other defensemen, and just going into complete overhaul mode. Also, things got really interesting when you considered that if Eichel had gone to Calgary, it would have taken that 2015 first and second overall battle between McDavid and Eichel to a completely new level, as no longer would it just be equivalent of first and second overall. Nah, this would be the next chapter of the Battle of Alberta right here, headlined by the top two guys in that 2015 draft. However, the trade was not able to materialize, and the Calgary Flames ended up with nothing in the Jack Eichel sweepstakes. Eichel goes over to Vegas, and all of a sudden, that is the end of the story. However, we noted this in the video when we discussed the actual Eichel trade itself, that there was indeed a big piece of rumor information that popped up the night before the trade. This is Kevin Weeks on Twitter, an NHL Network analyst and overall just knowledgeable hockey guy. He said this on November 3rd, 2:31 p.m. PDT. For all asking, my understanding is the NHL Flames have Matthew Tkachuk, who is a future potential captain, an upcoming first-round draft pick, a former first-round draft pick, and two prospects in the Eichel sweepstakes with the Sabres. Now, this is huge. This trade right here, if it went through the way that it's been laid out by Kevin Weeks, would have been astronomically higher than the price that the Vegas Golden Knights ultimately gave up, because Matthew Tkachuk, sorry to say, Alex Tuck, I like Tkachuk a lot more. That's a little bit difficult to say. Tkachuk and Tuck. I like Tkachuk a little bit more than I do Alex Tuck. A first-round pick, okay, the picks, we can keep them around, but you have yourselves an upcoming first, you have yourselves a former first that probably would be akin to Peyton Krebs, and then two more prospects that can suffice for the remaining draft picks in there. Just this trade right here is already a bigger win than what the Vegas Golden Knights gave up for Jack Eichel. And because this was the reported trade package from Calgary, which eventually got shut down because they made the trade with Vegas instead, it brought up a whole bunch of speculation as to what this was really about, and how this tweet kind of manipulated the entire trade saga. The first reply over here to the Kevin Weeks tweet talks about a hypothetical as to what that package could look like. Matthew Tkachuk, Connor Zary, two more prospects and a first, and Buffalo is bulking. How do you have no leverage and get an offer like this? I love this reply, by the way. It got so many likes, and it was just overall encompassing of the mood that we all felt once we saw this tweet. But it turns out, after the trade was made, after Jack Eichel got sent over to Vegas, this is what the Sabres general manager Kevin Adams said about the Flames negotiations. It's an article on The Athletic, which I will leave a link to in the description, but this article on The Score summarizes the same comments, and because The Athletic is paid for material, I don't want to go out there and screenshot that. But after Buffalo traded Eichel to the Vegas Golden Knights on Thursday, Sabres GM said that Matthew Tkachuk's name had not been floated in negotiations about a deal. It's not accurate. That was not correct in terms of the players that were being tossed around. That's an unfortunate thing when those types of reports go out. Furthermore, Matthew Tkachuk himself told the Calgary Sun, "I'm sure it's different for everybody, but I had a hard time believing that the trade rumor that Kevin Weeks put out there on Twitter was true. So I went about my business like I normally do the night before, and I went out to get prepared for the game. He also confirmed that he talked to the Flames GM Brad Treliving on Wednesday night, but Tkachuk said he wanted to keep the contents of that conversation private. And so now, you start to think, why was that the case? Kevin Weekes is not a dumb guy. He's going to go out there and say what it is that he is hearing. He definitely does have sources within the NHL. I mean, he's a former player, for crying out loud. What caused this to be leaked when it was so astronomically wrong and so astronomically unbalanced compared to what the real trade was? Greg Wyshynski said this on Twitter immediately after the Kevin Weekes tweet was published, and we talked about this in the Eichel trade video as well. Whispers, was that Calgary package leaked just for Vegas to see? And then we had ourselves even more conversation. This is what Elliotte Friedman said on the Merrick Show on Eichel and the Flames. The Calgary Flames were in, but they were never close. And so, when you hear this from Elliotte Friedman, my first thought is, why the hell would you say this now? Why would you not say this beforehand? Like, why was there reporting going on that Calgary was in the mix and they were at the one-touch yard line and all that stuff when they were never really close? They were in, but not close. I get it, kind of, that it might have been just more logical to say, okay, the last two teams in are Vegas and Calgary. We don't want to say which one is closer, because I think we still did have a centering kind of feeling that Vegas was going to be the team. But either way, for Friedman to come out here and say that Calgary was not really close at any point kind of defaces the entire idea that we had. At least that's kind of just how I perceive it. If you perceive it differently, then hey, feel free to comment down in the comment section below why that is. But we also had ourselves some more talk from Friedman, this time on the 32 Thoughts podcast. It's pretty obvious that the Calgary Flames are blaming Kevyn Adams for this because him and Kevin Weekes used to play together. Now, what does this mean? This means that, according to this idea, the Calgary Flames may feel like this trade rumor that was leaked by Kevin Weekes might have even just been a product of Kevyn Adams telling Kevin Weekes, hey, want to do me a solid? Tweet out this rumor that we have. Why would Kevin Weekes want to do Kevyn Adams a solid? Hey, because they're colleagues. They used to play together. Furthermore, Friedman said, I would love to see the phone logs between Calgary and Buffalo on Wednesday night. Wednesday night is the day that Kevin Weekes made the tweet. Eichel was traded the next day on Thursday. I think the Flames were really unhappy with the Sabres. I would be a little surprised if Adams leaked, because I think he really tries to keep things very quiet. Now, if that is the case, and we take a look at everything else that we had, Kevyn Adams saying, okay, no, Matthew Tkachuk was not included in the trade talks that we had with the Flames. It makes me feel a little bit more fishy about this entire situation. If I were to try to hypothesize a rationalization for all the information we have, this is just my own speculation right here, it would go a little something like this. Kevyn Adams in the Buffalo Sabres position probably did not get any trade proposal from either of these teams that he liked enough to pull the trigger on, because if he did, then he probably would have done it earlier. So maybe he goes out to his buddy Kevin Weekes, hey, you want to tweet this out? Tweet out something outrageously high that the Calgary Flames might actually have on their table, but they actually don't, but we'll make it seem like that's the case. Tkachuk, something, first-round pick, prospect, other prospects, etc. If Kevyn Adams decided to pull off a move like that, and the Calgary Flames are blaming him for that, it seems very evident that the idea that Vegas was going to be the team this entire time was probably more fact than fiction. Maybe Kevyn Adams tried this entire time to get it done with Vegas, but Vegas just would not depart with Krebs. And so, okay, now Calgary is in the mix. The Friedmans and the Dragers and the LeBruns are all saying that Calgary is in there. Let's try to spook the Golden Knights into making a trade offer that they don't want to make. Let's make them give up that Peyton Krebs by saying that Calgary has a whole bunch of stuff and Matthew Tkachuk on the table too. At that point, the trade gets done the next day. It is Tuck, it is Krebs, and the other draft pick swapped around. The end of the story is frustration now for the Calgary Flames, because according to Friedman, they're pretty upset at how Kevyn Adams treated this situation. Very, very interesting stuff. Talk to me in the comments, what do you think about this entire hypothesis that I have about the Flames blaming the Buffalo Sabres and Kevyn Adams in the Jack Eichel trade talks? If you're a Vegas fan, how do you feel about this? That Kevyn Adams tried to maybe do this to get you to give up Peyton Krebs? I know a lot of Vegas fans don't really care anymore because, I mean, you have Eichel, so that's pretty good, isn't it? But still, let me know in the comments all your thoughts. I hope you enjoyed this. And bye.